Welcome to Module 1. Now, this week we're going to do an overview of supervision. And so it'll take into consideration many things that you already know, but it's going to apply a few more concepts and theories that maybe you weren't real aware of, or maybe you were, I'm not sure. But, it'll kind of start putting things together as you move forward in this course. So this week, learning objectives. Now, if you're not familiar with learning objectives are what, by the end of the week, this is what, or the end of each module, this is what you should be able to accomplish. So describe the skills and competencies expected of supervisors, list the 5 functions of management and 3 sources of managerial experience, and foils management principles. Explain the value of contingency planning and management. And you'll learn from me that I'm a big contingency planner. You probably already saw that on your discussion or your attendance question this week, and which I will answer for you here shortly. But it is a big thing for me. And over the years, I have learned how important a contingency plan is. And during the lectures, I'll warn you beforehand, many of the times during lectures, I will apply or I will tell stories or real world experiences from my point of view. Now, again, as I mentioned in the overview video, not everything I say is a fix-all or is a one-size-fits-all. And I will refer to that many, many times over the next 16 weeks. So just get used to it because it's something that I wish I could tell you, hey, I can fix anything that, with this one theory or this one principle, concept, whatever. It doesn't work that way. It's very fluid. Business itself is a very fluid kind of operation. And when I say business, that is broad range. Business can apply to anything from government to the entrepreneurships. So there's a lot to it. You can even use business concepts in education. So let's get started. This week, we're diving into the foundations of management theory and connecting those ideas to the real world supervisory practice. We'll begin with an overview of different schools of management thought, such as classical and behavioral theories, and examine how the thinkers like Henry Foyle and Frederick Taylor still influenced how organizations are running today. Well, also looking at what it means to be a supervisor in today's uncertain and ever-changing work environment. Make sure to focus on how these ideas apply to your future workplace. It is very important that you take what we cover and learn ways to apply it. As again, in the overview I mentioned, there's several different techniques that we'll cover, but think of them as put into this imaginary toolbox that you have. And times you can dip into it to take out. And sometimes problems have multiple uses for different tools. So supervisors as a manager. Now, supervisors are often the bridge between the employees and higher level managers. Unlike executives, supervisors manage frontline operations. This means overseeing retail staff, manufacturing teams, or customer service representatives. Supervisors translate company goals into daily tasks and are responsible for monitoring performance, solving problems, and making sure that the work gets done efficiently. Supervisors often wear many hats, acting as a coach, problem solver, communicator, and enforcer of company policies. Many times we get the supervisor and leader or manager mixed up. And here in a few more modules, we'll actually show how they're two different things. Now, what I refer to as a supervisor, that's your frontline managers I just mentioned. That's the first line of defense, so to speak. And what a manager in my mind, so this is how I picture it. A supervisor takes what management says and translates it into a language that the workers can understand. Many times management people speak to numbers or to objective goals, and a lot of times the employees, there's a disconnect there between the vision and what the employees are seeing, or the whys, as I like to refer to them. A supervisor translates that, translates the objective, translates the mission, translates the goals to operational understanding for the rank and file or the employees. They're essential. Now, that doesn't work just one way. Supervisors also translate back to management. So a supervisor will take concerns or needs or wants from employees and pass them up to management. They are the gateway. And many times your strength or your frontline supervisors are the strength and or the weaknesses of your company and are extremely important. Now, the schools of management thought, this is kind of an overview. So what I'm going to give you is the high 10,000 foot view, so to speak. Inside your readings, you'll cover a little bit more. And if you really want to dive into it, you can do some Google searches on them. But over the last 100 years, and this is what I find amazing, these theories, these techniques and stuff that you're going to be taught, some of them are 100 years or older, and we're still applying them today. So we are still in the people who designed these or came up with these thought processes or these management theories were really spot on. Now, of course, as you'll learn as we move on, but there's some now they're putting some psychology involved in it and what makes people what motivates people, which is going to be like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I will beat that to death in the later module, but and you'll hear it if you're in the bachelor's program, you'll hear it in all the way up through the bachelor's program and into the master's. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is kind of the newest, greatest thing, so to speak, but it does apply to all these. So over the 100 plus years, scholars have developed multiple ways of understanding how organizations should be managed. And on your screen is a example, the classical approach, the behavioral approach, the quantitative approach, and the contemporary approach. Now, classical approaches, this is school emphasizes efficiency, hierarchy, and productivity. It includes scientific management from Taylor, administrative theory from Fayol, and bureaucracy from Weber. The goal is to design jobs and organizations scientifically to maximize output. So this is where they're going to take it down. They're going to break it down, and there's no, if you notice the things I mentioned, scientific, administrative, and bureaucracy, there's no room in there for human emotions or anything along that line. It's all about numbers and hitting the objectives. Now, the behavioral approach is emerging as a response to the rigid classical theory. So the behavioral approach is taken and notice that, hey, there's no room in here for human behavior, which this approach focuses on. So it focuses on human behavior, motivation, and leadership. It includes thinkers like Elton Mayo, Hawthorne studies, and Abraham Maslow, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It emphasizes the importance of employee satisfaction, group dynamics, and communication. And the behavioral theory has found that as a employees as a species, the human beings as a species, are a social animal, so to speak. And excuse me, I don't mean to offend. They're a social being, and they desire to work together in teams. Even though I'm sure there's some of you right now saying, "I don't. I'd rather work by myself." Well, as a outside source, and this is a big part of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, is that we are a social type of people and we like to be around people. And that's where the group dynamics and communications is very important. Now, the quantitative approach, also known as the management science, now this school uses the mathematical model and statistics to improve its decision making and resource allocation common in logistics forecasting and the quality control. This is one that is like, I mean, you'll hear about it later, but the TQM, total quality management, that's where this comes in. This is really looking at the nuts and bolts, almost like a classical approach, but more towards the number side of it. This is often applied in areas such as scheduling, the budgeting, and operational research. Now, contemporary approaches or systems theories, they view an organization as an interrelated set of parts that are functioning as a well-oiled machine, and change in one affects others. And then you have the contingency theory. It suggests that there is no one-size-fits-all management. And if you notice when you listen to the way I approach things, I am very much in the contingency theory aspect when I think about my management style, because I don't believe in one size fits all. The best method in this situation, it depends on the situation, which could be like the size of the team, the industry that you're involved in, the external environment, internal environment, lots of things going on there that can affect the way things happen. And then you have the course, the one I mentioned earlier, total quality management. This emphasizes the continuous improvement of customer satisfaction and employee involvement. Associates with Deming and Geron. Supervisors often blend insights from these schools depending on their environment and goal. So, what most management do or supervisors do is they take a little bit of both. And as I mentioned, I have one that I tend to gravitate towards, and that's a situational management. Now, of all these, there will be the one that you find that is your preferred approach. And each one has its place. Now, I mentioned classical approach is a very rigid, and I mentioned it as rigid, doesn't take in human account. There is businesses and or occupations that require that you must have that approach. You can't be so caring because it could cause you problems. For example, I would think like military or possibly first responders. There's a system of approach to it. Not saying they can't believe in the human part of it, but you can see how that would weigh to their, this is what I've got to do kind of a thing. Classical management theories, and these are the ones who invented it or thought of it. So let's look at closer at the three pioneers who laid the groundwork for classical management theory. Now, Frederick Taylor is a scientific management. Taylor believed that productivity could be improved through scientific study of tasks. He introduced time and motion studies to identify the most efficient way to complete a job. Taylor Tyler promoted a clear division of labor between managers who plan and supervise and workers who execute the tasks. He emphasized training standardized tools and performance-based incentives. Although criticized for treating workers like machines, Taylor's focus on efficiency influenced modern operations and some HR practices. Now, Henry Foyle, administrative principles, Foyle focused on the overall structure and functions of management. He identified five core management functions: planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating, and controlling. His 14 principles of management, like the unity of command and division of work, serve as a guidelines for organizational structure and leadership. Foyle was one of the first and few management as a universal set of skills that could be taught and applied across several different industries. Now, Max Weber, the bureaucratic management. Now, Weber proposed that organizations should be structured around clear rules and hierarchy authority to achieve efficiency and fairness. He emphasized impersonal relationships, formalized processes, and merit-based advancements. While bureaucracy can become rigid, Webster's idea helped establish modern administrative systems in government and in large corporations. By understanding these three approaches, it gives us a solid foundation of how management evolved and how supervisors can apply these lessons today. Now, Henry Foyle's 14 Principles of Management provided a blueprint for how managers effectively go throughout their day. The first is division of work. Now, tasks should be divided among individuals and groups to ensure that the effort and attention are focused on specialized portions of the work. Specialization leads to greater efficiency and productivity. For example, if in a restaurant, the cook should be focusing on cooking while the server focuses on the customer service. This prevents confusion and allows the expertise to grow within each role. The authority and responsibility. Now, the authority gives managers the right to give orders and expect obedience, while responsibility refers to being accountable for those orders being carried out. Boyle believed that authority should be matched with responsibility. A supervisor who delegates tasks must ensure that they provide the necessary authority for the employees to carry out those tasks successfully. Now, discipline. Now, discipline is one of the ones that no one likes to do, but employees must obey and respect the rules that govern the organization. Good discipline is the result of effective leadership, clear communication, and consistent enforcement of the policies. Discipline helps maintain order and consistency in operations. Without discipline, productivity and morale could suffer or will suffer. Unity of command. Each employee should receive orders from only one supervisor. I'm sure many of you have seen that where there's all kinds of supervisors and just, 10 supervisors to a worker. I could think of a couple of retail operations that are that way. When employees are pulled in multiple different directions by multiple leaders, it can lead to stress, inefficiency, and clear reporting line. By having a clear reporting line, it it helps with communication because if you have an employee who's being told by three different bosses to do three different things, no matter what that employee does, they're going to be wrong with some one of those supervisors. By having one supervisor, it clears up the communication line. There's no which one do I do first, or how do I do it? How do I satisfy all of it? It's real seamless on the way it works. Now, esprit de corps, this principle promotes the team spirit, unity, and mutual trust among employees. Managers should encourage harmony and cohesion in the workplace, as a positive team atmosphere boosts morale and productivity. Like, for example, celebrating team accomplishments or recognizing efforts builds camaraderie. These principles remain the foundation of today's supervisors. They provide timeless insight into how to maintain efficiency, fairness, and a healthy work culture. Henry Foyle proposes 5 essential functions of management that are still widely taught today. Now, remember what I said, this is quite dated, but it still applies. First, you have your planning. Is determining organizational goals for the best way to achieve them. For supervisors, this means setting clear objectives and developing action plans that for daily tasks and long-term projects. So planning is the fundamental. Before anything can happen, you must plan. After the planning stage, you arrange or organize. So you start the organizing phase, function, which arranges resources. That's put your people, your equipment, and your material in place in the most efficient way. Supervisors often organize their work, their shifts, assign roles, and coordinate different departments. Next is the commanding function. Commanding is directing and motivating employees to meet those goals. So remember the goals we set in the planning stage. Now, the commanding or leading section is where you're directing and motivating them to meet those goals. This involves giving the instructions, resolving conflict, and inspiring staff. Supervisors play a key role in this by leading by example. Now, coordinating ensures that all parts of the organization or team work together smoothly. Supervisors need to align their efforts across departments or shifts to avoid overlaps or gaps. And then we have controlling. Controlling is the monitoring of the progress, comparing results to the plans, and making adjustments. For example, a supervisor may use a checklist to ensure the quality or conduct of weekly reviews to track the performance. These functions form the daily responsibilities of most supervisors and provide a structured way for managers to manage their team effectively. So Robert Katz, identified 3 essential skills for effective managers. The technical skill. The ability to perform specific tasks related to a particular field. Like, for example, maintenance supervisor must understand machinery and repair techniques. These skills are most important at lower levels of management. Human skills, the ability to interact effectively with others. This includes communication, conflict resolution, empathy, and team building. Supervisors rely heavily on these skills to lead diverse teams, manage personalities, and foster positive work environments. And conceptual skills, the ability to see the big picture and understand how various parts of the organization relate to each other. These skills help supervisors think strategically and anticipate the impact of their decisions. Through the more critical, even though it's more critical at the higher levels of management, supervisors still benefit from understanding how their team fits into the broader organizational goal. Developing strengths in all three areas, it just allows the supervisor to lead more effectively and to adapt to changing work conditions. Now, the contingency planning and management. Contingency planning or contingency management, it emphasizes there is no universal way to manage an organization or a team. Instead, supervisors must access situations and adapt their approach to match specific circumstances. For example, a supervisor might manage an experienced team with a more hands-off approach, but take a direct leadership style with a new hire. Contingency plan means preparing for potential challenges, such as supply chain disruption, absenteeism, or changes in demand. It involves identifying the risk and creating a backup plan to ensure a continued operation. The supervisor might cross-train staff so they can fill in different roles or develop a checklist for responding to unpredicted or unexpected customer surges. This planning is essential during times of uncertainty or change. It ensures a team can remain resilient and responsive. Now, that brings us to our attendance question that I teased about at the beginning. So, I mentioned contingency planning. Now, contingency planning for the operation, there's a couple ways to look at this. First, what I mentioned in this first part of the lecture was a contingency planning for the business itself. So you have to have a plan A and a plan B. You probably have heard that before. So if this happens, this is what we're going to do. But if this happens, this is what we're going to do. That's part of being in management. You have to be able to look past today. You got to be looking weeks down. For example, if it's like right now, most of your retailers, if you doubt me, I challenge you to go look. You go to your Walmart, Dollar General, any of those, and they're already planning for Halloween. Matter of fact, Halloween's probably been up more than a month now, and it won't be long, and you're going to see Christmas months out. So the contingency plan is to get everything in place so that I have it there. What if the supply chain, I can't get it here on time? Then they got plenty of time to work with it. So contingency planning on the business side is extremely important. Now, the part that I mentioned about the contingency planning for management. Many managers avoid putting this into place for contingency planning on their jobs. And what I mean is to have a management person, the person below them know their job, and the person below them know their job. It's an old school way of thinking, but many supervisors don't want to have employees below them who know more than them. What the managers need to consider, or supervisors, that anyone in a leadership position must train the person below them to take their job. Contingency plan. There must be someone else to take over because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, something bad could happen. You could be on your way to work and be in a traffic accident. And what's going to happen to your business, especially if you're a small organization? Your business stops? No, business doesn't stop because something happened. Business continues. The success of your business's future and most likely your livelihood will depend on your contingency plan. Who's next up? Now, I mentioned many managers don't like to do that because the fear is they'll take my job. that is old thinking. It doesn't work that way. The way you really need to look at it is if I train the person below me, for example, I have a COO, a chief operating officer. I want her to know everything I know for every bit of the operation. The more she knows, the more she takes off my plate. The easier my job becomes. I can focus on other things. That's the mentality you need. If you're worried about someone taking your job, you're that insecure, then I would challenge you that maybe that's not the job for you. You should be able to train the person below you and have enough trust in them that they will pick up the pieces you miss. It'll make you a lot stronger. It'll make the organization a lot stronger, especially if the two of you are on the same page. So if you take vacation, for example, you don't have to worry about it when you come back. A good contingency plan is it never missed a beat while you're gone, and you come back and it's no problems. If your contingency plan is not good, if you don't have the follow up, then when you come back, you spend days catching up. That tells you got a problem. So again, most of the reason, back to answering this question, most supervisors avoid this because they're afraid to be replaced at the personal level. Supervising in uncertain times, I would challenge you to look at the environment now or an economy and see that it is uncertain. There's operations out there now that are so big that the word used to be is too big to fail. But that's not true anymore. At one time, that did mean something, but it doesn't anymore. So modern supervisors must lead in environments that are increasingly complex and fast-paced. Business now is in hyperspeed. There's so much going on so fast with the invent or the expansion of computers. AI is really starting to take off. With all this out there, business has taken off. So you have technological shifts, economic fluctuations, changing employee expectations, a remote work trend, and which is added uncertainty because the when the pandemic came, and that most of you I'm sure remember that a lot of jobs went remote during this time, and that employees really liked that because they weren't having to worry about someone watching over them all the time, and they could do their work in a relaxed position or maybe sitting on their couch, just their feet up or something instead of in an office. And the employees really like this, and it's kind of created a new thing. Working from home back even 10, 20 years ago was unheard of unless you were in sales or something like that where you didn't have to be in the office. It's a new thing. So in order to succeed at this, the supervisors can't just rely on one size fits all strategies. They need to be flexible and responsive. This means staying informed about workplace trends, listening to team concerns, and making decisions even when complete information isn't available. Whenever you go to make a decisions, which I really touch on later, making a decision, right, wrong, or indifferent, is better than not making a decision at all. I would rather my employees make a decision, be it wrong. I can fix that, and then they can learn from that. But making a decision, even if you don't have all the information, the supervisor should prioritize communication, emotional intelligence, and team support. Now, for example, during the COVID-19 pandemic, supervisors who maintained transparency and checked in with the employees regularly to help morale and this helped with morale and productivity. Supervisors also are agents of change. And in uncertain times, they help translate high-level decisions into practical actions for their teams while managing anxiety and resistance to change. People, most employees, and I'm sure if you think about the people you work with or you've been around, don't like change. People like things the way they always work the same, always. And in business, I will tell you the biggest thing that can destroy a business is a simple phrase, and it is, that's the way we've always done it. Things are always changing. Um, I often offer this as an analogy. So if, as I said, when I took over the business I'm in now, I got a lot of that. This is the way we've always done it. My comment to everyone is think about that. It's the way we've always done it. Now, most of you probably know the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So if that's the way we've always done it, isn't that in fact insane? By definition. Because if we keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, then that's not right. So we always have to be willing to change. So developing those strong interpersonal and problem-solving skills makes a big difference on how successfully managers navigate these turbulent conditions and forcing change. You have to continually change in business. You have to continually move. You cannot be stagnant and you cannot do the same thing over and over again, even though it is successful right now. I could give you many, many examples, but let's stay in the grocery retail because that's where I retired from. Grocery retail, many years ago, Safeway came out with the coupon book. It was a coupon book at the time. I'm probably dating myself. But that coupon went to the cards, and now the card activated. If you don't have the pleasure of shopping, say like a Fry's, which is really taking Safeway's initial platform and have turned and morphed it into something big, it was change. And now Safeway hasn't changed as much. They're very good at what they do, and they're getting better, but they haven't changed to the extent that Fry's did. Now, what's the next one going to be? Who knows? But it's always building, always changing, because after a while, that newest greatest thing goes away, and customers are looking for the next newest greatest thing. So always pushing for change. Being an effective supervisor requires a balance of technical knowledge and soft skills. So let's review some of the most critical qualities. Communication. Communication will be repeated for the next 16 weeks. I'm going to warn you now. It is the key, is the bedrock of all leadership. Clear, honest communication helps prevent misunderstandings and builds the trust. This includes giving direction, providing feedback, and listening to employees' concerns. Problem solving and decision making. Supervisors face daily challenges, whether it's resolving a scheduling conflict, or a response to a customer complaint. They must analyze information, think critically, and make sound decisions quickly. Adaptability. The best supervisors can adjust their plans and strategies as needed, whether it's adapting to a new policy, an unexpected employee absence, or a supply delay. Flexibility is key. And then emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is understanding your own emotions and the emotions of others, in helping in managing conflict, providing support, and building strong relationships. Delegating trust is the next one. Now, delegating trust is trusting employees with responsibility. It shows confidence and encourages growth. Good supervisors assign tasks clearly and follow up appropriately. And then we have motivation. A motivated team performs better. I mean, that's common sense. Great supervisors understand what drives their employees and finds ways to inspire effort and commitment. These are day-to-day skills that separate average supervisors from outstanding ones. Now, with motivation, which I will touch again, I keep saying this, but we do have multiple modules coming up. Supervisors do not have the ability to motivate through financial means. In other words, they cannot give pay raises. Most supervisors do not have that ability or that authority level. So motivating people through other means is essential. And that is by, understanding what your employees want or need and meeting those needs that are not financial. So maybe there's a certain tool they need to make their job easier, providing that tool. Maybe there's special lighting they need, they're providing the lighting. It's the little things that will help the employees build trust or gain their trust. And finally, our last slide. As we wrap up module one, remember that for one, I've thrown a lot at you today, and it's for week one. I threw, again, the 10,000-foot view of supervision. Next week, we'll start diving into a little more. But remember that while the foundation of management were developed over a century ago, their core principles remain highly relevant today. Supervisors still rely on planning, organizing, and leading teams, but they must also be ready to adjust based on new challenges. So what we've learned about was the foundational thinkers like Taylor, Foyle, and Weber, and explored major management theories and skills. These insights are tools that guide your supervisory style, not strict rules. The real world demands flexibility, creativity, and empathy. Going forward, think about how you would handle supervisory situations differently now that you understand these theories. As we move into future modules, you'll explore communication, employee development, performance feedback, and other key areas that help build on these foundational ideas. I hope you had a good first week. I hope you have a good takeaway from this. If you have any question, please reach out to me. I look forward to the communication and reading the assignments. Have a great day.